My father's been treating my mom like crap. He's even went and got himself a mistress, and he's getting so brazen, he thinks that she can just come over to our home while my mother's there and just eat supper with us, his mistress. I mean, what kind of family life is this? Anyways, the story gets so much deeper. I'm about to drop an absolute bombshell. Hello, I'm an 18-year-old university student struggling with family issues. No one really understood what I was going through, and I needed people to give me an opinion on the situation without any bias. That's why I'm posting my life story here in hopes that you guys would understand me and what exactly I'm going through. I'm not sure how many of you understand the pain of your father being unloyal to your mother. It's like a different level of hurt. From someone who you were so sure would protect you your entire life and keep you happy, you wouldn't expect to be hurt this way. However, I was. And speaking from experience, it's not a fun thing to go through. My mom and dad have always had a rocky relationship. I'm an only child, so every burden of every fight would land on my shoulders while I'd sit on the floor, trying to calm my mom down after my dad left the house in anger. I was around 8 when I experienced their first proper fight. I was sleeping that night, but their loud screams woke me up with a jolt. I rushed down the stairs to see what happened, only to find my parents at each other's throats, and since then fights have always been regular in the house. I'm not really sure what started it, because my parents loved each other before this. They were high school sweethearts who got married and had a kid. Nobody expected them to fall out of this, bad with each other. Actually, I don't think a lot of people know what's happening behind closed doors. My parents want to keep up their image of high school sweethearts, so they don't let anyone see through their facade. They don't let anyone witness the hours of screaming that take place during the day and sometimes even at night. However, it's exhausting me in the process. As their only child, I was expecting to fix things between them if they got too ugly. If my dad was ever angry, my mom would tell me to go, console him, so she wouldn't have to deal with his anger. If my mom was in a mood, my dad would tell me to fix her mood, so she'd be responsive to his demands. At first, I was okay with it because I thought if I put enough effort, I'd be able to make the spark light up again, just like in high school. However, after a few years of trying, I realized that they're far too gone to be able to come back now. I truly realized how bad this has gotten one day when I was a freshman year. I came home from school to see my mom sitting on the couch. Her head was in her hands and her shoulders shook. I was really confused because I've never seen my mom cry in my life. Even though my parents had so many fights and their marriage life was basically ruined, I've never seen her cry the way she was at that time. I rushed to her to see what was happening, but she was unable to talk for a few moments. All I heard was her sobbing and ragged breathing as she tried to calm herself down to explain what was going on. I was in high school at the time, and when she finally calmed down, she let me know what happened. I was shocked to my core. My father was cheating on my mother. I never imagined him to be the man he was slowly turning into. He was ruining his family, and he did not care about any of us. All he cared about was himself, and if he stayed happy and satisfied. I don't think he even knew that my mom spent the last few days crying as she found out about what he was actually doing. We tried to talk to him again to make him understand that he was doing something that wasn't right, and that he should care for his family. But his only reaction was annoyance, and he told us to not put our noses into his business. It was ridiculous because we were his business. We were his family, and he was ignoring us to entertain some random person he felt an infatuation with. At this point, I was telling my mom to leave him and start a new life since he really didn't care about her at all, but she kept refusing. According to her, she had nowhere else to go and her comfortable life would be ruined if she left my father. I told her I'd go with her and get a job to support her, but she still kept refusing. At that, I let it be because I knew that there was no way that she was going to leave the house or my father. After that, the relationship got worse, and Mom and Dad did not talk to each other at all. It felt like a business relationship between the two. Their fights kept increasing while their show of love kept growing for the public show. Every time they would hang out with their friends, they would act like they could not be more in love with each other. During those times, my hatred for Dad increased even more. I could not bear watching my mother cry her eyes out every other day, wondering why Dad didn't love her enough to stay loyal to her. It was hard for her, but it was hard for me as well. I felt like I lost my dad during all this. Things got worse when we finally met who his mistress was. Dad turned out to be incredibly shameless as the months went by. He started talking about his mistress, Dahlia, even to us. He was sitting in the living room while Mom and I worked in the kitchen to prepare dinner for everybody. Our kitchen was open, so whatever Dad said or did would be heard by us, and Dad knew it. There was no way that he wouldn't be, because that's the only one way that we used to communicate when I was a child waiting in the living room while he would prepare my favorite pancakes. That's how I realized that him talking to Dahlia on the phone while we were in the kitchen was him, not trying to hide it. He didn't care if he knew what he was doing or not. He called her babe right in front of Mother, and she had to pretend like she didn't care about any of it as well. That night, I had a thorough conversation with my mother about the situation, and I asked her why she was not suing Dad for cheating on her. At least this way she could gain something out of it and would not have to stay under his shadow and power all her life. However, the only response I got from her is, it's not that easy leaving someone you've loved for so many years. As a woman, it's harder to split your family apart and go against your husband because society usually tends to discriminate against women, especially those who are divorced. I understood her point, so I let it be. But my dad was getting worse. He was being ruthless, and I knew it would come to bite him in the butt sooner than later, and I was right. Dahlia was not a nice person. We met her once when Dad brought her home so they could have a movie night. Mind you, my mom was in the same house as well, and she had to bear everything and pretend like she was comfortable with it. I still don't know why she did that, but she did. I tried really hard to convince her, but nothing was wrong, and nothing was working, so I just gave up. Then things started progressing even more. Dahlia kept coming over more often, and Dad kept taking her on dates, getting her whatever she wanted whenever she wanted it. But then I started noticing something. Every time she would come over, they would talk about nothing except money and what brands she likes, and what Dad could buy for her. Anything that had to do with materialistic items, Dahlia would talk about it. She'd force Dad to take her out on dates, to expensive restaurants, cruises, whatnot, and he never did any of that for us. We weren't that rich for her to be demanding all of this anyways. I felt like she was with Dad just so she could get his money and whatever else he was providing for her. At first, I thought Dad realized what was going on and that they had to sort the relationship out, that it was all dependent on money. But then I noticed how wrong I was. Dad had no idea what he'd gotten himself into when he started dating Dahlia. He truly loved her or some crap and refused to see the reality that was right in front of his eyes. I tried giving him so many hints, so many signs, but he ignored every one of them. I shoot him a text reminding him of my theory whenever Dahlia demands something expensive, which was every other day. This one time, she even asked Dad to get her a diamond ring so she could show it off, and guess what? Dad got it for her. That's when I knew that there's no saving him. He wasn't a family man. The actual trouble began about 2 months ago when Dahlia got the sudden energy to threaten my father. Basically, she started getting really brave over the past few months. She'd ask my dad to get stuff constantly, and he'd be bringing gifts for her all the time, taking her out, all that. Then she started demanding Dad give her a part of his business. Obviously, this shocked Dad as well because he didn't expect her to pull something like this. He was clueless about how much of a wicked person she actually was. Dahlia gets really mad when Dad said no. She didn't understand how he could refuse her for anything because he never did that. Especially because this was something she really wanted apparently, and Dad, quote, broke her heart by saying no. They fought for days, and Dad kept saying no to her, and she kept telling him that there's no way she was going to stay with him if he wanted to, quote, disrespect her. The only reason I know all this is because the entire fight was happening at our house in our living room, and I'm grateful that Mom was out at the moment, but as soon as Dahlia entered the house, I went to my room and refused to come out till she left. However, I had to come out earlier than that because of the sounds of screaming reaching my ears as I closed my eyes to enjoy a nice peaceful nap. But no matter how hard I tried to shut it off, Their argument always managed to sleep through the wall. Shattering any sense of peace I tried to hold on to, I braced myself and stepped out of my room, preparing to confront the tense atmosphere once again. However, the scene that greeted me made me freeze in my tracks. There was Dahlia, her face with a mix of anger and fear, clutching something in her hand. My dad, worn down but angry, stood facing her with a troubled expression. She kept repeating the words, "Pregnant, pregnant, pregnant," as if my dad could not hear what she was saying, and after that, without hesitation, she thrust the pregnancy test in front of father, revealing the clear presence of 2 lines. My entire world stopped when I saw those lines. I don't think any of them realized that I was standing there as well, having witnessed everything that just happened between the two. As I stood there, a silent witness to this unexpected turn of events, I could not shake the feeling that things were about to get even more complicated. It was as if a new chapter had suddenly began, and one that none of us were prepared for. My dad's poker face cracked for the first time in ages. He went from looking like he had it all under control to just pure shock. The room went silent, like we were all holding our breath, waiting for the next bomb to drop. It was tense, that you could practically cut it with a knife in thin air. It felt, well, like I was on some sort of twisted reality show, waiting for the commercial to hit so I could catch my breath. And there I was, stuck in the middle of this family tornado, just trying to process the fact that Dahlia was about to bring a whole new dimension of chaos into our already messed up family. The days that followed were like living in some kind of alternate reality. Suddenly, the pregnancy became the big elephant in the room. Overshadowing their ongoing feud, it was like every conversation revolved around it, like we were all tiptoeing around this bombshell that threatened to blow up our entire foundation of the family. It was weird, you know. One minute they were all bickering about the usual stuff, and the next they were dealing with this bombshell that had the potential to change everything. For me, it was like living in a suspended state of uncertainty, not knowing what the future held or what would even go on with the dynamics of already complicated family. I found myself torn between wanting to be there for Dahlia and not. Was this child going to be my step-sibling? What would that even mean? Would that even be my sibling? I don't want a sibling who's been associated with Dahlia, especially after how she ruined my entire family with her thirst for money. My mom's reaction was the worst thing I've experienced in the whole situation. I told her what happened, and when she got home, she literally broke down, absolutely sobbing on the floor. I tried to pick her up so that I could take her to my room and out of my dad's face, but she was too angry. Way too angry with him to let me deal with it. She stood up, her face bursting with anger, eyes wide as she took in everything and let out the meanest word I've ever heard my mom say. Both my dad and I stood there in silence as we watched my mom have her anger control her actions and her words, roaming around the room, throwing profanities every other minute. I couldn't blame her. I could not. It was like she felt personally betrayed, like Dahlia crossed a major line, and to be honest, I was feeling pretty betrayed too. As she ranted on, I could see the fire in her eyes. It was a determination to protect our family. It was like she was gearing up for a war, ready to go to battle and defend what is rightfully ours. And you know what? I was right there with her. In the days that followed, the anger of hers did not die down. I guess you could say it just simmered beneath the surface. This constant reminder that things were not cool. Every time the topic of Dahlia came up, you could practically feel the tension in the air. It was like we were walking on eggshells, trying not to set off another explosion. Guys, I don't know what's going to happen now, but all I know is that it's not going to be pretty at all. Update number 1. The tension of the house only seemed to get worse. Nothing seemed to get better, and my mom's hatred for my dad was immeasurable. His just existence would trigger her wrath, rightfully so. I mean, after all, how could he? Even though it's been quite a while since everything went down, I still cannot seem to wrap my head around it still. Like, it's crazy that people around us still think that we're a perfect, happy family. Maybe not anymore, actually. Dad's been acting kind of off lately. All of that must have affected him, I guess, but it doesn't come near to what he has put Mom through. Regardless, he's been seeming a bit off as well. I get the fact that having another baby at this age might be stressful, but it didn't seem like that was what was bugging Father. There was something else that he wasn't telling us, and I would make sure to get it out of him, especially if it was concerning the witch. It got me when he came home. His mouth turned into a frown as he ignored his surroundings and went to take a seat on the couch. When he looked up, I noticed the rim of his eyes turned red as he kept avoiding eye contact with me. After grilling him and making him confess what actually happened, I finally found out the truth about how wicked Dahlia actually is. She's been threatening my father with a pregnancy announcement to make him give up almost 25% of his business to her. My dad loves his business, so it's understandable why he's so devastated about the entire situation at hand. I could not even believe that she would do something like that. How evil do you have to be to not only ruin a guy's family, but also demand almost a quarter of his business? One that he so badly loves as well. My dad told me how he had a really big fight with her about it, and they both said some really mean things to each other. That also is how he found out that Dahlia is only with him for the money and nothing else. His entire face reeked of devastation as he recalled the entire fight and told me what had happened. Honestly, I was a bit confused with how whipped he was for that woman. I would have expected him to give her everything he ever owned. To see him against Dahlia in something like this was truly a big shock for me, one that I made sure to express. The answers I got was not the one I was expecting, though. You see, Dad's business was going down a few months ago, and not even 3 months before the business was shut down. Dad was surviving on solely his savings and all of the economic terms that I didn't really understand. All I know is that he has enough to survive and live a good life with his family. Even though we were trying to save up financially and I was working 2 shifts to make our lifestyle go back to how it was, Dad was out there buying Dahlia diamond rings and taking her shopping. That's what made me so mad. He wasn't spending money on us, instead using it all to make that witch happy. Anyways, he didn't tell Dahlia any of this because he got mad about the fact that she was demanding it and threatening him with a baby to get what she wanted. He finally saw how inhumane she was and decided to do something against it. However, Dad and I did end up getting into a fight because he asked me to help him get through this time, leading me into a fit of rage where I demanded an explanation as to why I was expected to be there for him all the time, but when we needed him, he was out there enjoying the best life with his mistress. This led to us getting into a screaming match as he pleaded that I help him get Dahlia off of his back by ruining her. He knew that he could just tell her that the business was dead, but he wanted her to suffer since she used a child who was not even born yet to try to manipulate him into giving her what she pleased. I told him that I was going to think about it because I could not just make a decision in the time that we spent fighting. He agreed, but kept pleading with me to help him so he could be there for the family again. I know that's considered emotional blackmail, but it got me thinking. I don't know what I'm about to do yet, guys, but I know I'm not about to sleep tonight either. Update number 2. The situation with Dahlia has reached a tipping point, and it was clear that action needed to be taken. I was the only one willing to do that because it's not like my mom would ever go against Dad. Even though he had to ask us to take his side in the entire fiasco, I didn't want to help him. He didn't deserve my help, and he did not deserve anything nice from my mom's side as well. However, looking at how he was pleading with us to help him, I thought about giving in. I couldn't believe I still had a soft spot for their relationship. I thought about it all night, about the entire fight that took place, about how my dad was begging me to help him. It seemed like he was only acknowledging me properly because he needed me. He needed my help. He needed me to get him out of this mess because he was unable to clean the mess that he's made. At first, I was really angry. I didn't know what to say or what to do with him crying in my face. He had abandoned us for so long, and suddenly he wanted to help. Wow, it felt ridiculous to even consider giving him a helping hand. But then I had a plan. I was going to make sure that this time he stayed loyal to Mother. If he couldn't do that, and there's no way I was going to help him, he already destroyed this family once, and I would not let him do it again. A few days after he asked me to help him, I sat him down and told him my condition. If he promised that there would be no more mistresses, he would receive my help. If not, he can go rot wherever he wants. I would not help him a day any longer. The conversation wasn't what I expected it to be. I expected him to lash out at me and tell me that I did not have to say and what he does with his life. However, he agreed with me as soon as the words left my mouth. I was a bit shocked because this wasn't the man I had come to know over the years. But then I realized something. Either he truly regretted his decision and wanted to make things better for all of us, or he was just using me for his own personal gain. Either way, I made my conditions clear. If he could value the family again, then he'd have nothing to worry about. I knew just how to deal with that evil witch, Dahlia. Before I went ahead with my plan, I asked Mom if she was okay with me helping Dad to get out of this mess. She was a bit skeptical at first, obviously, because Dad basically ruined her entire life. Also, she did not want them to suffer, to go through a tough time because of Dad's mistakes. But when I told her that this was an opportunity to make sure Dad came back on the right track and stayed there, she agreed. That's why I went ahead with the plan. I knew Dahlia would do anything and everything to make sure that we gave her a part of the business, so we decided to call her up. Dad texted her the night before and told her he wanted to, quote, negotiate. The terms and everything, so that she'd be much more enthusiastic about the call. She wasn't ready for what was about to hit her. As soon as she picked up the phone call, Dad put her on speaker so I could listen and join in as well. Dad and I went off on her and told her that there was no way we were going to give her the business, so it's better if she went ahead, go away, never bugged Dad again. That just seemed to make her angry because she started screaming at me for poking my nose in their business, and when Dad defended me, she turned on him and called him evil and selfish. Well, then she proceeded to threaten a fight of a legal battle against us, using the baby as leverage, later hanging up on us without letting us listen to the replies. Nothing has happened yet, but I'm sure it will soon. I'll keep you guys updated. Update number 3. So I'm back with another update, one that you guys have probably been waiting for a long time. If you're wondering whether Dahlia decided to actually sue us, yes, she did. She sent us the court's official document around a week ago, I think, and I'm not really sure the entire timeline because everything's been so chaotic and messy. Dad finally gathered the courage to apologize to Mom and realized that what he did was wrong, and even if Mom can't forgive him yet, he wants to work on earning it, which is still a big step in the right direction. Moving on from that and towards that evil witch, she sued us for not giving her 25% of the business because apparently she's carrying my father's child, which meant she's automatically, quote, part of the family and can fight for the share of the business. We let her do whatever she wanted because honestly, we have so many more resources than she does. Even if she does have resources, we're definitely smarter than her. She's throwing herself into this big debt just to sue us and pay for the lawyer fees, and according to what I've heard, she wanted to hire the very best lawyer just to handle her case, which is why she's currently drowning in debt and can't handle paying for anything. Her luxurious lifestyle has been on hold since this entire thing with Dad started, because she was entirely dependent on his money. I'm so glad to see her suffering and angry about the situation. It may sound mean, but I like seeing her suffer because she made my mom suffer. Anyways, what she doesn't know is that she's trying to sue us for a business that's been dead for months now with no real value left behind it. We haven't told her anything about that because we wanted her to learn her lesson and also just get her back for the behavior of the past few months, even more so. Apart from that, another thing she's not aware of is that my best friend is actually a well-known lawyer who has fought many cases and won most of them easily. I called in for a favor, and since he knows the family dynamic I have and everything that's been going on, he assured me that he would fight my case. If Ben's on my case, then there's no way Dahlia is going to win this. One shock that Dad and I got while gathering evidence against her is that the date when Dahlia became pregnant does not align with Dad's schedule at all. You see, Dahlia has been claiming that she's almost 5 months pregnant now. However, that wasn't possibly because my father was with my mom in a different city from my town. We went to there to visit my family and stayed for almost a month, so there's literally no way that this baby is Dad's, since he wasn't even in the city to be able to conceive it. This can only mean one thing. She's been two-timing with my dad. He was devastated when he realized she did that, but honestly, I don't think Mom and I feel sorry for him. It's almost the exact same crap that he pulled with us and ruined our lives, so we're kind of glad that he's getting the same treatment as well. Update number 4. Well, we got sued by Dahlia and we absolutely destroyed her. Let me tell you about it. So basically what happened is that she was super confident about beating us because she thought that she hired the best lawyer that was out there and he would be able to make us pay almost 25% of our business. We let her do whatever she wanted and we did not tell her anything about the business. So we just left her in the dark completely and would end up regretting her decision because, in the meantime, my best friend and I went to gather all the evidence together and presented it in court to expose her for what she truly is and also to expose her for two-timing Dad. We prepared all the plane tickets and everything that we could show that my dad was with me and my mom during the month that the baby was conceived, meaning the baby was no way his. This would mean that the claim that she was making about being part of the family and the baby being my dad's would be proven false, and then she would lose the case. So, during the court case, when we were presenting all the evidence and making her lose credibility, she looked like she was about to throw a punch to any of our faces. Anger consumed her face as she stared at us and tried to make it go away somehow, getting worse when she noticed that we won the case and she'd be left to deal with her problems on her own. A few days after the case, she was out of our house consumed with rage. She was demanding that my dad pays off the loan that she had taken to pay the lawyer because it was my father's fault that this entire thing happened. Oh, I was so angry when I heard that because I knew that there's no way that this was my dad's fault, not when she was the one who was begging us to give her 25% of the business. A business that did not even exist anymore, and oh my gosh, you guys missed the expression on her face when she realized she was fighting for nothing. And especially when she realized we knew that the baby did not belong to this family either. She kept being aggressive by sending us texts and calls every single day, trying to get us to pay for her debts because she wanted to buy fabulous things and live her life in peace. It got to the point where she started banging on our door and demanding that she sees my dad, so she could tell him to pay off the debt. A few days after her aggressive episode started showing, we had to go and get a restraining order against her because she felt like she was putting our lives in danger by being there because she was so aggressive. Now, my dad is just working on fixing his relationship with both of us as our family goes through all the changes. That's going to happen. So, it looks like the father of today's story actually came to recognize his gigantic mistake. And yes, we haven't really earned the trust back between the relationship of him and OP. However, it does look like it's going in that direction, and he finally realized this mistress that he had was after his money. And she also was cheating behind his back, got pregnant with somebody else's baby. I mean, this was truly a messy situation, and it's just crazy to me that the father would even bring her into his family house. That's so nuts. But I want to know your thoughts. Go ahead, drop it down in the comment section. Let me know if you've ever seen a similar situation, somebody in your family, friends, family, anybody. Just let me know your thoughts. My name's Mr. Reddito, and I narrate stories like this every day. So, if you guys enjoyed today's video, go ahead, drop a like, drop a subscribe button. I'll see you tomorrow, and just remember, it's cool to be kind. Peace.